Welcome to the Alignment Blueprint. I'm your host, Callie. I'm a holistic life and business strategist. I also happen to be extremely passionate about holistic healing and growth. With over 13 years of experience, I've worked with clients from all walks of life. I also know living an authentically aligned life in business and in health can be a little overwhelming. I'm here to break it down for you and take you on my journey to authentic alignment. Remember, the materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for medical advice or treatment. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Alignment Blueprint. I'm here with Jessica Marie. How are you today?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. I am doing really good.
Good. I'm so excited to hear that. I'm really stoked to learn more about you because I know a bit from following you on Instagram and seeing what you're sharing, but I'm really excited to get to know you even more today and for all the listeners to get to know you as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. Excited to be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna have you introduce yourself because I want to hear from your mouth, and your energy and your vibe, what you are about and what you want to share with people.
I love that. Yeah, so I am a mentor and coach to coaches, entrepreneurs, online service providers who are looking to really step deeper into their leadership so that they can start to lead from authenticity and originality as a personal brand and online service provider. A lot of the work that I do sounds strategic, but my wheelhouse, my medicine is really helping people see themselves for who they actually are. So, doing a lot of the internal work that is necessary and needed to step into leadership, to hold the capacity for the amount of money, clients, success that they actually want. And then we get to apply the strategy, which is also really fun. But that's something that's really special about me is that I love to work on the human being behind the brand.
I love that so much. I love that you said authenticity because that's one of my biggest messages when I'm talking to clients or just people in general or sharing on social media is just be authentic. It makes it, in my opinion, maybe you can agree or whatever, but it makes it so much easier to
Yeah.
share.
Well, a lot of people are finding that they don't necessarily know what authenticity means. And I can understand that because
Mhm.
I think a lot of the times as a personal brand on social media, you're told to just show yourself and be vulnerable and relatable. And people kind of get stumped because what does that actually look like? And of course, going deeper into your brand values and going deeper into your ideal client and all of that is important. And I think authenticity really is this expression of yourself that really feels like an extension of you through the screen. And so when people can really start to hone in, what are those quirks? What are those fun things that I like to do when no one's watching? And when you can have the bravery and the confidence and the courage to share those things, of course, that feels comfortable for you and relatable to share, I think that's really where originality comes in. And then that's where the authenticity comes in. And the originality comes into me where it's how can you do what you do and put a spin on it or share things in a way that is really unique to how you do the thing? Because there's so many people out there that do what we do, but they're not us. So how do we start to extract those parts of ourselves that are just us to
Yeah.
go through the screen?
Yeah, I love that. And that's what I try to portray and try to learn every day is that we each have our own special, unique gifts. And
Mhm.
there is someone out there for all of us, like a client, whatever it is, a friend. Um, there's somebody out there for all of us. And if we can just do the internal work like you talked about, it makes it easier to bring it out, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So you said that about you doing internal work. If you want to share, what kind of internal work do you work through?
I love that. It's really identity shifting. It's really learning the deeper, I say, emotional landscapes of yourself. So, as we know, I think at this day and age, we're all aware of trauma. We're all aware of how we've been brought up and have some level of degree of awareness of certain patterns, behaviors, thought processes that aren't really healthy, that are maybe translating in our adult relationships, translating in work and business. And when we can start to actually look at those patterns within ourselves, we start to recognize, oh, we've been the person holding ourselves back this entire time. It's not the strategy. It's not It's not that you aren't capable. It's not that you don't have enough skill set. It's the part of ourselves that we're maybe not ready to face, or we are aware of a pattern of self-sabotage or imposter syndrome or what have you that is really preventing us from being the person we want to be. So that's the inner work I love to do with people, is creating the awareness with them, helping them move through those patterns with specific techniques so that they can start really showing up. And then it's like we add that piece of not only doing the internal subconscious work and belief work, but we also have to include the body. So the nervous system. So our nervous system is also at a caliber right now where there's only so much pleasure we can have. There's only so much discomfort. And I like to say this, and imagine if this person right in front of you was a coach and they just acquired 30 more clients. It's like, consciously, that's great, more money. But then unconsciously, it's like more work, more responsibility, more leadership, more management. And that might affect your nervous system so much to the capacity that you actually might self-sabotage that whole increase of clients. And
Yeah.
so I like to say that with money too. And then it's like the discomfort part of it, we're only at a certain threshold where we can handle so much discomfort of like maybe low income months. Maybe that's like a rejection from a client. Maybe that's a comment someone left on your Instagram, right? And so when we think about all those things, they actually play a pivotal role in how we show up in leadership, how we actually run our business, really our relationships, right? And so if we start to actually stretch that capacity of pleasure, stretch that capacity of discomfort, then we're actually stretching ourselves bigger to show up more boldly, to show up as the person that we really want to be. And my last part of that is, anybody listening right now, you can think about this as the people that you are aspiring or feel inspired by on social media. It's not the amount of money they have. It's not the lifestyle they have. It's actually how they present themselves that is so courageous and bold and feeling and conviction that you are craving. And that is the stretching of capacity to hold more and stretching the capacity to show up with uncertainty and with risk.
That was beautiful and so true. So true.
Took me a long
And
time to realize this.
yeah, it's such a mindset shift to look at it like
Mhm.
that. I love
Yes.
that. How did you get into all this?
So I started, I was working corporate. I worked for a really luxury athleisure brand in Los Angeles, and I was doing digital marketing and I was doing project managing for them. And I realized I wasn't really happy. And the biggest thing that came to mind was that, wow, I'm living for somebody else's dream. I'm living to make their dream a reality. What's my dream? And I started to realize that where I was wasn't necessarily fulfilling that. And also, I had this awareness I wanted to make a difference in the world. And so, sitting behind a computer, working in a fashion company just wasn't making a difference in the world.
Yeah.
And I actually, at the same time, synchronistically, I was going through a lot of weight issues. So that got me
Mm-hmm.
into the gym, got me eating better. And that was the first time I started actually posting on Instagram, just my journey. And through that, I recognized that I love to share my journey. And I had people DMing me, asking me what I was doing and all of this. And so that brought awareness of, oh, could I actually be doing this as a business, this as a career versus what I'm doing now? Fast forward, I got certified in nutrition and fitness, and I started my own online business in 2019. So I left corporate, and it was like the best day of my life.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and I was doing that for a little while. And then I felt that same urge of like, just like apathy of like, oh, I don't want to get up. I don't want to make content anymore. And I'm like, what am I doing, Jess? You're living the dream. You're an entrepreneur. And I realized that there was like something that wanted me to go deeper. And I had an awakening in 2020 simultaneously again. My clients that were coming to me had deeper rooted issues that the gym could not fix, like going into the relationship, wanting to lose weight so they could feel love. And it was like, whoa, okay, hold on. I wanted to help them, but I didn't know how. So that's when I took a pause from coaching and I started investing in myself to really gain the skill set. But also something that's really important for me is that not only to learn how to do these things, but also to take myself through it. My lived experience is a big part of how I coach. I will never take somebody through something I've never done. So I was my own guinea pig. So I did a lot of the deeper work. and had some really aha moments, had some psychedelic experiences, and just really opened my mind to where I was held back. And again, all these things that I'm sharing with you really came from my lived experience of like, oh, I wasn't able to hold more clients, so that's why I sabotaged those sales calls. Or, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to take enough risks, so I wasn't able to invest in my business. So then I just kept the cycle of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So all of these things I'm sharing, I've actually gone through myself. And so that's really what created this awareness of, oh my gosh, the human being behind the brand is actually more important than the strategy, because I've also invested thousands of dollars in strategies and it worked for them, but why didn't it work for me? Right. And so we have to start
Mm-hmm.
to really consider where we're at intuitively, where we're at energetically, where we're at within our own self of threshold, right? We want all these fancy things. We want all these accomplishments consciously, but the subconscious is really where our reality is manifested, right? And so if we actually look at that and look at the way that we've been living our life, looking at how we've been showing up to our business, we have to look at that part and say, well, if I'm not happy with the result, where was I in that moment? Was I actually ready for that success? Or was I ready for that thing that happened, right? We always say, well, good thing that didn't happen because then I'm here. And I believe that. I believe that everything happens for a reason. So if we believe
Mm-hmm.
that, then we have to also look at where we are energetically to see what else, what other work is needed to actually happen in order for us to become the person that we really consciously want to be.
I love that deeper look inside.
Yeah,
Like
we have to.
really, yeah. I had a huge shift. My first like actual spiritual awakening was in 2018.
Mm,
And I just got this massive download to start living way more intentionally
mm.
and with way more gratitude. So I love that you had your own versions of spiritual awakenings and they led you to here, and that you do the work that's a huge thing of mine. Like what makes me feel like is one of my superpowers is that I do the work daily
Yeah.
that I'm telling clients to do. I'm consistently doing the energetic work, the spiritual work, the physical work, the emotional
Yep.
work, all the things in order to be the best version of myself and make the best choices that I can make and expand like you're talking about. So I love that. That's what you incorporate. Um, a question I had that popped up in my head. Do you have, so I do it a little bit differently when I say about a client. There's an ideal client to me, and then there's an aligned client. And the aligned
Mm.
client to me is like the one that you get off the call and you're like, gosh, I'm so grateful for them. I love them. This was so awesome. Instead of like your average 30 to 45 female you know what I mean? Not that those things aren't great, they're great, but I'm just interested in what your version of an aligned client might be. Like, how do they make you feel? How do you make them feel? What kind of person is it?
I love that. That's a really great question. And I've had so many different versions of soul. I call them soulmate clients too.
I love that.
But to me, a soulmate client, aligned client, ideal client is somebody who is really ready to do the work, and there's not a lot of convincing to that this work is necessary. I found I always thought this way, by the way. I've always had this like psychological mind where I always wanted to get deeper with people. I got curious versus like making assumptions about people. And I remember before I like started doing all of this, I would like start to have those thought-provoking questions. And for some people, you just know when they're not aware, and you know that you're just really, it's like pulling teeth to like really have these conversations. That's not an ideal client for me. I want somebody who is like willing and ready to like look at their shit and knows that like, okay, like I am my worst enemy. I am self-sabotaging. And yes, I could use strategy. Yes, I could use actual tangibility, but also, man, I got to do like doing the work within myself to become that person is number one priority. So when I'm on calls with people and like vetting them and they're vetting me, I really start to hear the language that they're using, and I really look at where they are within their own awareness.
Okay.
The person that's working with me needs to have some sort of awareness of like, I have patterns, I have a past, I have done this, I've done this, and I've really see like where I might be holding myself back. And to me, that's more of a aligned person. And when I get off the call with them, they are already taking action. I heard this before, and from a not, I wouldn't say she's a mentor of mine personally, but I look up to her a lot on social media. And something she said really stuck with me. And now it's something that, like, again, goes into like the, list of soulmate clients. She said, your ideal, your soulmate client should not need you. They should want you. And that is so different, right? Because the
I love
need is like,
that.
oh my God, I need you. I need you. They're like at your back pocket, like blowing you up. And the neediness is overwhelming. And I used to be that way, and I wasn't a good client, right? And I had to kind of take a step back. And sometimes my old mentor would actually put me on read for 2 to 3 days. And then like, hey, I found my solution. He's like, yeah, that's what the intention was. But I think the wanting is like this next level mentorship, next level coaching, where you can really start to see them as an asset versus like an ally, versus the sense of like, oh my God, you're going to tell me every single thing I need to do. So that outsourcing of power versus internally sourcing and asking myself the question and then coming to you with then my thought. That to me is different. And so the clients that I work with, I'm really particular on where they're at within their own journey.
Yeah.
And how much handholding they need to do, because as I grow and evolve and expand, I want to work less but make impact more in like a shorter setting. And I know that I can do that with the right people that are in a desire for me versus a need for me. So that to me has been really helpful to really recognize. And of course, yeah, it feels really good when you get off the phone and your client's okay, I'm doing the homework. Yeah, I'm doing the things that you said, or like they're kind of, again, their own advocate, like they're leading themselves is really important for me when I'm really vetting out the right person to work with me.
Yeah, I love that. Did it take you some time to find that kind of client? Like to figure out who it is that you wanted to reach, or was it just an initial like, hell yes?
It took time for sure. I remember when I pivoted my business from fitness to life coaching. I call it the umbrella of life coaching because there's so many different variations of what life coaching is.
Mhm.
And when I pivoted in 2021, my one-on-one client roster just like shot up, and it was like so great. However, I realized there was a big part of like my career where 2021 was all about serving those one-on-one clients, but I was doing almost 2-hour calls with them a week. I was doing a weekly 1 to 2 hour group call a week. And I had a 6-month course I was putting them through too. So it was like so much, and I wasn't getting paid as much as I wanted to, but I don't regret it, right? Because I
Of
just
course.
started, I was just pivoting, and I was like, cool, like this is worth this much. And people were saying yes. So I was like, okay, like this is a good product. However, towards the end of that year, I recognized that I was burnt out. And when it was 2022, I realized that I actually didn't work with a lot of people in 2022 because I was going through my own dark night of the soul. And I was also going through this sense of self-sabotage, which I didn't recognize it. I thought I was just like getting on calls with like the wrong people, but really
Mhm.
intuitively, I was just like, I don't want to work with one-on-one because I was so burnt out. And so I realized that, yeah, there was a lot of clients I was working with that were very needy. And again, an hour, like 2-hour call in the week, and then a weekly group call. I mean, oh my gosh, I was spreading myself so thin. And they were
Mhm.
like, I had a chat. So it was like, there was so many things that I was like, wow, Jess, we learned from that. That was a great experience, but now we need to like separate. So now I only do 2 calls a month. Depending, sometimes I do 3 because I do breath work too. So I'm kind of infusing more of that energetic release, cathartic release too. So to me, it's not necessarily coaching. So I've kind of just really restructured how I do my calls, that I can show up as my best self and they're getting the best out of me. But yes, it was definitely a challenge at first to figure out what worked, what didn't. And also I think too, if we can be transparent, when you're first starting your business, you're really willing to take anybody,
Yes.
and you're kind of
100%.
willing, yeah. And you're kind of willing to like kind of bend your boundaries. And I didn't know what boundaries were at that moment.
I was literally
So
going to ask you about boundaries.
yes, yeah. And so that was where I realized I didn't have any. Like there would be like I'd even like be like, okay, well, I can take $500 off the entire package if you sign up today. Cool, yeah, I'll do it. And I was just like, Jess, like you're already giving so much, you just took more off. So there was like certain things that I was like willing to budge on just to get them in the door. But then they come out to be the not so great clients because you did all of that to like, it's just like a leaky energy. You know what I mean? And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people don't necessarily recognize that. They're just trying to like sell. But when you're like privately coaching people, it is really important to harness your energy and get the right people in there because you're spending so much time with them. And sometimes like they could be such an annoying client that the money doesn't even make it worth it. So yeah, I had to really align myself with like the boundaries within my own self and what I wanted, what I wasn't available for, what I was available for, so that I could really start bringing in one-on-one clients. So then in 2023, I like energetically opened myself for that when I saw the pattern after
Mhm.
a hypnosis session. And I was like, oh, I actually want to work with people. I want to work one-on-one. But now I know who I'm like wanting to work one-on-one with. So yeah, it was definitely a learning curve for sure.
Yeah, you had the clarity and the boundaries to go along with it. And that's so funny you say boundaries because I was literally waiting to ask you
Yeah.
about boundaries because that was a huge part for me because I had a very similar journey. I went from a personal trainer to a health coach more into a life and business strategist.
Cool. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I don't like really quick. It's so interesting to me. I would like if you are okay with it, I would love to ask you a short question.
yeah,
Because I've noticed so many, I'll say us, go from fitness to life coaching. Like, what is that transition? I almost feel like the fitness industry is like that gateway to like
it's a
spirituality and
gateway.
personal development.
It's absolutely a gateway. It was the initial part of my journey into healing whole,
Mm,
mind, body, and soul.
yeah.
And it really sparked my interest in wanting self improvement.
Yeah.
So I was always really into movement and like working out and being active. And then that waterfalled into nutrition because when you're working out, you
Yeah.
intuitively just want to eat more fueling
Better.
food so it can better
Mhm.
serve your workouts. And then it fell into the intention behind food, which then turned into spirituality and then turned into like all the
Wow. We have a
metaphysical stuff
similar journey.
and the mentality behind it. And all throughout that, I was in therapy working on my mental health and then
Yeah.
I just realized, you know what it was? I had someone message me and say, when are you going to say you're more than just a health coach? And I
Mm.
was like, oh shit, I'm more than just a health coach.
I love that.
Oh, you're right. So I just totally shifted. And in order to work together now, you have to be have some kind of business or in a business capacity or wanting to grow a business or start one.
Yeah.
But I implement so much healing work into it, kind of like you do in a
Yeah.
different way. Um, but I implement so much healing work into it that it's supposed to hopefully the way that it worked for me was to make life and business more easeful and joyful and fun as opposed to like you said earlier they have to be in your energy or need to be in your energy not like just want to work with you
Yeah.
so you can come from a place of I want to do this, I get to do this instead of I need to and I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
So
that. Yeah.
yeah.
It's cool. It's cool to connect more with people that have shifted that the pivot from fitness to life because I think it's just this entry point, this gateway. Same thing. I got deeper into nutrition and then that's when the awakening happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to go deeper. So yeah.
Have you heard? Authentic Alignment, the Business Accelerator, is open for enrollment. In this small, tight knit container of like minded female entrepreneurs, you will gain the foundation and growth to start or scale your woman owned business to one of wild abundance. With weekly calls, our specialized healing component, individualized support, and lifetime access, we have co created a container like no other. Feeling the call? We are here and we are waiting for you. Need more one-on-one support? Rise Up, my 6-month life and business mentorship, is accepting applications. This is a container where impact meets income. Have questions? Head to my website, callitony.com/riseup.
I think with nutrition, that's where the intuition really comes in to get off the get go. If
Mhm.
you've not used it before or haven't been aware of it your entire life, because like I always had gut feelings, but I never really knew what that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with the nutrition, I had gut feelings about food. and like what made me feel really good physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and then what didn't make me feel as good. So that's kind of sparked my interest in being intuitive.
Yeah.
So that is funny. I'm noticing a lot of parallels with your journey and my journey, the way you've had spiritual awakenings, how you started and things like that.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
cool.
It is. And I think a lot of people, even like bigger, larger influencers on social media that incorporate healing and spirituality, it's like they've some way, shape, or form they started in fitness.
Yeah.
Like I think it's just like working on yourself individually, and then you get into, opening your consciousness and all of that, and then it just starts to transcend from there. So super
Yeah.
cool. I love that.
Yeah. I do too. That's awesome. Um, I had a question and now I forgot the question. Oh, I know what the question was. I had to think for a second. I was like, wait, I had a
Because I
question
distracted you. That's
and now I
why.
can't remember. I know. And now I going off on a tangent. Um, so speaking of like boundaries and your aligned client and your business in general, if you were to define success, because I know a lot of times we define success as like monetary value,
Hmm.
which is totally fine. But I'm just interested because I believe we can define our own version of success and it can look and feel however we want it to look and feel. So I'm interested to know, what is your definition of success and how does it look and feel in your body?
Mm. So it's I want to give a really quick backstory on this because you mentioned money, and a lot of people like believe that success is money, and it can be, right? Like you
Hmm.
just said. When I did my NLP master practitioner training about almost 2 years ago. Wow, was it last year? No, I don't know. I think it was 2 years ago. Anyway, time is flying.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I remember this moment. We did a values elicitation through the subconscious. So we all know values, right? We could like see a list of them and circle them, right? That's conscious. But doing the subconscious way is actually like your true value, and you could do it with any area of life. Super cool. And so we did it for career, of course. Like I went there for my career. And I remember writing down the list, success, and then down the list unconsciously, right? The
Mhm.
person was taking my values, and money was actually like number 14. I'll never forget it. And I thought that was really interesting because this whole time I thought success is money.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of my career, I've had, tons of different like pivots within my business and also within my finances. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm not successful. I'm not successful. I'm not successful. Right. And I realized that success and money are very different for me internally. And I didn't realize it
Mhm.
until that point. So I started to realize money is important, but it doesn't equate to my success. I am extremely successful. Doesn't matter how much money I make or don't make. And so to me, success in my body means that I am successful at my mission. Meaning, my mission
Beautiful.
is to allow people to become the best versions of them, to have the sense of authenticity, originality, and really feel like they can just live their life to their fullest potential without anything holding them back. And every time I work with a client, I am successful because I get to help them do the thing. And money didn't necessarily mean that I was successful. So I think it's really interesting when people kind of combine those, because I would love for that person to really take a moment and extract, does that actually mean you're successful? Because if you're working your butt off in your business and you're working with a lot of clients, but you're maybe not seeing it on paper financially that you've been successful, what does that
Hmm.
mean about your worth? What does that mean about the work that you've done? And that really helped me distinguish like the shame that I felt and really acknowledge like, oh my gosh, like I am so successful at what I do. It doesn't necessarily mean that I needed to be monetarily successful to make it feel like my own definition of success. So to me, that is success. And yes, the money that follows is amazing, but that does not define success for me, actually. So
I love that because it took me a long time to not value my worth off of how much money I was making.
yeah. Yep. I don't even do that anymore.
Yeah.
Took me
I
a
don't.
while too. And I think that's also something important to recognize too. I'd say like 2022 was also a big part of like looking at my money wounds and my money relationship and recognizing that, you know, I had really low financial months. Like, again, I told you I didn't really work with anybody in 2022 because I was so focused on my healing, and I had to get multiple side jobs to be transparent. And I remember I would just sit there and be like, oh my gosh, like, how does this make me feel about myself? And I really had to rewire that pattern of like money equals worthiness. So anytime that I am increasing my prices or anytime I'm working with a client, they'll be like, oh, I want to charge what I'm worth. And I said, no, you want to charge what the value is that you're giving.
Yes.
Your worth has nothing to do with yourself. And I started to shift how I say that. I don't say that anymore. When I hear other people say that, I'm very tempted, depending on who they are, to reach out and be like, hey, charging your worth has nothing to do with your worth. So why don't you
Yeah.
shift that and say value? But yeah, that's been a really big moment for me to like recognize like money has nothing to do with who I am as an individual, who I am as a coach, what I can do, what I can provide other people, what I can provide for myself. Like I am my own definition of worthiness. And money has nothing to do with it. Yeah, that was a big moment for me in my journey.
100%. Um, I love that. And it kind of leads me into the next question, because I kind of feel like that would be something you would say to your younger self, or your as
Yeah.
a younger self to your older self. But if all the versions of you were sitting at a table together, say like your 6-year-old self, your 16-year-old self, I don't know how old you are, but your 26-year-old self and you now, um, what would they say to each other?
Hmm. Hmm. I think that they would say that you are not defined by your past. Everything that you've gone through in your life has led you into become the person that you are. The lessons you needed to go through were absolutely necessary for your evolution. Don't ever regret anything. And I think that they would say that you are worthy of everything that you desire. You always were. You just needed the remembrance of it.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mm.
So beautiful. Um, that's great. So, how can people work with you? What is it? Say that someone's listening and they're like, that's me. I'm that client. I'm that client. I need this. What are some things that you offer? Is it like a one-on-one thing? Is it a group thing? I'm not really sure. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I do one-on-one coaching. I also have my inner leader mastermind, which is currently running right now, which is really everything we talked about from this moment of working on the human being behind the brand, laying down the foundation in your business, within your brand, getting to know yourself on a deeper level so that everything you birth and create from that place feels really rooted in your authenticity and originality. Um, Cohort is closed right now, but we are opening enrollment back up in the late summer. I'm also in this moment in time where I am rebranding a lot. So there are new offers that are going to be coming out this year. So TBD on that. But if you are interested in working, we can always hop on a call and just create something that's custom to you. Of course, like one-on-one is obviously a great option. But I'm also very open to getting co-creative with my potential clients to see what they might need and desire from me. And it might be a custom thing until I actually start birthing more specific offers. So yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to drop the link in the show notes to schedule a, you called it a gifted session.
Yes, yeah. So for anybody that's listening to this episode that like really resonated with our story, our conversation, and you're interested in my services, I am going to be offering 3 gifted sessions. So anytime you listen to this episode, you can book. And that's gifted session will just be an opportunity for us to get to know each other and me help you through a specific problem, issue, and what have you. And then from there, if that feels really exciting, we can always talk about how we can work together in the future. But that session is just purely just giving and serving at my highest and just to help give you value. So yeah, that'll be in your show notes. So you can book that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And then I'm also going to drop her website and Instagram in the show notes too, and link that.
Yeah.
So go down in the show notes and look for all those things right now. Thank you. Um, so is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I think you asked me some really great questions of like how I got started, what I do, why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I think my biggest advocacy is just sharing like my story, sharing that no matter who you are, no matter how you perceive what you've gone through, whether it was big or small, you have a story. And if you're feeling like that fuzzy tingling in your heart, I say heart's desire pulling you through, then you're here to make impact in some way, shape, or form. If I didn't listen and if I just saw myself as another number on the internet, then I would never be where I'm at and be as successful as I am, or even
Beautiful.
making impact in any regard. So that would be the last thing I would have to say is just like, if you're feeling the call to go farther, feeling the call to impact anyone with anything that you have to share, you are unique, you are worthy, you are valued, you are capable of doing that. And you should go and do it because we have one life and you could die tomorrow. Like, honestly, we could all die tomorrow. So are you going to be happy with the life that you're living today?
100 million
Yeah.
thousands percent. Yes to that. Yes. I had a question from my mentor and it was like, what's your why beneath your why? And it came down
Mm,
to when I die, I want to know I lived.
mm, yeah.
And ever since my dad's passing, that's been really weighing in a great way, but carrying me through
Yeah.
and been on my heart that when it's my time, I want to go out knowing that I lived the fullest life to my potential and I did not waste a second of it.
Yeah.
So I
Hell
love
yeah.
that you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This was such a beautiful conversation
Yeah, I
on
had
this
a
lovely
blast.
Monday.
Yes, right. Great way to start the week. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Alignment Blueprint. And please go check out the show notes and check out those links and book your gifted session. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Alignment Blueprint. I hope you enjoyed and got at least one takeaway. Liking what you hear? Subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you listen from. And don't forget to join me over on Instagram at CallieTony_. That's at CALLITONY_. Talk soon.